My wife and I, we loved each other very much. When it was finally time for us to have our first child, she never came back from the delivery room. Our child, however, did. He was an angel. My entire world. My new heart. After the old one was ripped out from my chest. I missed my wife greatly, but what I held in my hands for the first time was not only the spitting image of her, but also the shining embodiment of our love, and I promised him and her that he would live the best life possible. How foolish. We live in a small town, the kind that favors beliefs and tradition over logic and reason, the kind of town where gossip and news spread like wildfire through dry leaves, and my wife passing due to my son's birth had been the first woman in nearly a century to do so in our town. Therefore, my son, Owen, was deemed a bad omen almost immediately. The first 5 years we had together were the best years of my life, although I had some grief due to my wife's passing. I had Owen, reminding me that she was still there in a way. And even though Owen never knew her, I made sure that he wouldn't forget her. I often told stories about the ongoing, loving, truly incredible being she was, and always reminded him of how much she would have loved him. It was also a good way to dispose of my inner baggage, breaking down at the more emotionally charged memories, but Owen was always there for me, comforting the crying mess of the man I usually was. Everything was great, until he started kindergarten. When he first began school, he was ecstatic, hoping for a chance to finally make new friends, and no, I wasn't overprotective of him. He just couldn't really get along with kids at the playground. Anyways, when it started, it was fine for about 2 weeks. And then he began coming home with puffy eyes. I didn't think much of it. He was a small child. Lots of things could make him cry. And then it kept happening. His eyes showing more signs of sadness, his eyes getting puffier and redder with each passing day. This worried me. Whenever I asked about it, he shrugged it off or changed the subject. But it all came to a head when he came home, still crying. A bruise across his arm. This infuriated me. So the next day we came into the class together to have a discussion with the teacher, but what I found horrified me. His desk was solitary in a back corner of the room, trash all around it, and my son shivered just at the sight of it. I decided the conference would wait and use the shiver as an excuse for illness to take him home. When we arrived at home, he broke down and hugged me as tightly as a 5-year-old could, nearly causing me to vibrate as his shaking continued to grow. He thanked me and began to explain everything. He was infamous at the school. The parents telling their kids about him, telling them he was cursed, telling them to avoid him, and the children began picking on him, thinking it would make their parents proud, and in some sick way, it worked. They moved his desk to that corner, threw trash at him, refused to let him sit anywhere near them during lunch and snack time, and the day he returned crying was the day the abuse turned physical. And the teacher, you might be asking? Well, she stood idly by, always believing Owen was a bad omen. She'd allowed this to happen to my son, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I reported this to the school, and they observed her for a day because that's all it took to make it clear that she hated my son. She was fired, and her teaching license was indefinitely suspended, and my son was moved to another class with none of the other kids. Problem solved, I thought. Once again, how foolish. First grade rolls around and the kids of the abusive class are back, and they are livid with the fact that I got their favorite teacher fired, so they took out their frustrations on Owen. For the entire first 9 weeks, he'd come home with a new bruise until one day it stopped. And the kid who came home, it wasn't Owen. It was a boy with a gruff, deep voice. I mean, as deep as a 6-year-old voice can get. And he was cold and distant. I didn't know why Owen was acting like this, so I asked him, "Hey, champ, how was school? Any better?" He responded coldly and quietly, "No." "Is it worse?" I asked, tears stinging my eyes. No, he says, the same cold voice. But then he seems to realize that he's speaking with Dad, and his demeanor changes drastically, instantly becoming the sweet angel I remembered. Dad, I'm so sorry. You weren't supposed to meet Randall yet. Please don't be mad, he says, beginning to panic, but I cut him off. Owen, calm down, I said, soothing, realizing he thought I was upset with him. I'm not mad at anything, but I paused, not knowing if I wanted the answer. Who's Randall? He calmed down, thankfully at ease due to my tone, as he told me. Randall's the boy that talks to me. He always does, only I can hear him, though. He told me whenever they start bullying me, let him be in front, and I let him. Things have been better since then. But today he hit back. We didn't get in trouble because the teacher says the other boy started it, but he says not to do it again. All I needed to hear was bullying, and I pulled him out of school. Scold me all you want, but I couldn't bear the thought of my boy getting hurt all this time. It pushed me over the edge. I took him to the therapist as well to learn more about the Randall character, which she said shocked me. My son had developed a split personality, one that would take pain for him and help him cope with the bullying. She wasn't able to get rid of him, much to the dismay of me, but Owen was over the moon when he realized Randall was staying. See, I thought it was odd. After thinking, he was the only thing that can relate to what happened to Owen since he also experienced it. I ended up homeschooling him until what would have been his senior year in high school. But it was his senior year, and he asked me to attend the public school. This is his last year of school for me anyway, so I thought, why not? He's smart enough. No one could recognize him, and it's his last year, so let him have fun. When I told him I'd enroll him, he was ecstatic, and his glee was contagious. I'll skip over the paperwork and tests and let you know that his first day was much better than expected. He made friends, the teacher was impressed with him, and no one knew who he was. And everything kept going up, to the point that it was beyond perfect. He had many friends, good grades, and was generally happy. Randall also hadn't made an appearance, so for me, that was the icing on the cake. But then the talent show came. Owen had been debating entering until the last day, and when he made his choice, he did not pick well. So he entered in a rush, writing that his talent was ventriloquism, though he'd never even seen it performed. I laughed for a full 5 minutes when he told me this, but I bought him a doll and simply told him, get to practicing, with a smirk that put shame to the phrase, shit-eating grin. He reluctantly began practicing, and he struggled a lot. Like, a lot. Not with the speaking. He had a natural talent for making the dummy move and talk. It was getting harder to see his mouth move by the day. The only thing that sucked was his personality, or, well, should I say, its personality. It talked, but it just felt like Owen. Every joke fell flat because of this, but then, the night before, he made a breakthrough. And I really wish he hadn't. He called me into the room with an exciting shriek. Dad, come here, look, hurry, he screeched. But even though it left my ears ringing, nothing made me happier than hearing his excitement. I reached the doorway as I asked, so you finally got it down right? I said. My dad powers activating as he smiled. Yeah, you're so good at guessing, he told me, earning a small chuckle. Well, let's see it, I told him as he started. The show started, and the jokes were hitting now, hard. I laughed, honestly, so hard I clutched my sides. They sounded and acted completely different, the dummy being a deep voice, easily annoyed guy when Owen just kept annoying him, and the reactions were priceless. I honestly thought that I was listening to two people. Then he explained what he'd done. Can you guess how I did it? Huh? He asked playfully, seeing me shake my head. It's Randall! He's the doll! I got nervous at hearing this. But then again, what harm could come of it? So I allowed it, seeing as it drastically improved his act. He won the talent show, and for the next month he took the dummy everywhere, making people laugh wherever he went. He was so very happy at the response, so I let it continue until the incident. He was suspended from school for scaring the other students in the cafeteria with his act. Now, this confused me, and I was admittedly very angry with him to get suspended for such a stupid reason. And then they showed me a recording, and it still haunts me. Halfway through the performance, the dummy's voice switches, now at a higher pitch, and it spoke louder, and it kept repeating, "Help me! Help me!" Then Owen spoke. But it didn't sound like Owen. It sounded like the voice he gave the dummy. It sounded like Randall. He kept telling the doll to shut its trap, and the dummy even began crying unsettlingly. The recording ends, and I look at Owen, worried. We get home, and he lays in his room for a bit. Then days pass. He only comes down for food and to use the bathroom. I didn't know why it was happening until he came out one last time. Owen was holding the dummy, and he spoke in a deep, cold voice I knew too well. "Hey there, Dad. Want to see one last show?" "Okay, then," he said, not even waiting for an answer. "Dad, I'm scared. What's he going to do to me?" the dummy asked, fake sniffling, as I realized in horror who the voice belonged to. It was Owen. "I spent so long stuck in your head, and you used me like a circus act. I tried to help you. You denied me, and then to top it off, you used me as a gimmick." Randall shouted, venom dripping from his words. "Now I'll show you what it's like to be the one stuck and used and ignored," Randall finished, his deep and uncaring voice haunting me still, and then he smashed the dummy, slamming it against the floor, shattering it, and its screams faded. Randall smiled and said one final thing before leaving me, and it left me broken. "Geez, Dad, can't believe you lied to Mom like that." And then he left, without saying another word. Hey there kids, it's me, Mrcreepypasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching or listening to tonight's video or podcast. If you're interested in getting more horror stories, you can always check out the links in the description down below over to Amazon. Amazon will bring you over to a couple of different things. The Creepypasta Collections Volume 1 and 2 have some of the best authors that I've ever worked with in my entire 9 years of doing creepypastas online, as well as a link to the Creepypasta comic book and a couple of the audiobooks that I've worked on. If you like hearing my voice and want to hear more of it, you can always check over audible.com for Mrcreepypasta and find Tales from the Gas Station, Volume 1, Volume 2, and many, many others that I have worked on in the past. They're a lot of fun. I think every story I've ever worked on with these guys have always been fantastic, so it's worth your time clicking. And a very special thank you to everybody on that Patreon, patreon.com/Mrcreepypasta, especially Ariel Torres, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Ken Lando Higuchi, Brianna Van Tine-Janzen, Chompski, TheRedOakShieldVirus, Sindee Barney, Asia, G. Weevil 3, Diana Kraus, Stephen VanHuss, Tristain Pelton, Nico, TheGingerBroz, Dante Rowe, Raphael Rodriguez, Don Meulmeester, Eliminator 86, SteampunkSinner, Kaleb Dougal, Sky Harbor, The Homeless Bird 93, Gabrielle Undefined, Bobby Carmen, Liam Newman, Aaron Stormcrow, Bobby Jean Torgan, Dr. Strawberry, The Wormhole, Barbara Macedo, and Vic. Thank you guys so much, and if anyone would like to join them on that list, head over to patreon.com/Mrcreepypasta. Here's hoping that you guys are loving the horror as much as I am. And sweet dreams.